The galaxy had watched Earth for many years. From a distance, humans looked calm, friendly, and quiet. They shared knowledge. They traded fairly. They helped other planets with medicine and clean water. Many thought of them as peaceful, maybe even soft. Some called them the listeners. Others said they were too careful, too quiet. In meetings of the Galactic Union, humans always spoke last. They listened, asked questions, and avoided arguments. When wars broke out between other worlds, Earth stayed away. They believed every life had value. Too many species that seemed like weakness. But one old alien general named Threx didn't agree. They are not soft. Threx once said in a private council, they are waiting. No one took him seriously. The Zarnok Dominion, one of the largest empires in the galaxy, believed Earth would never defend itself. To them, humans were small, slow-growing, and unimportant. So they decided to test Earth's patience. They destroyed a human listening outpost on the edge of neutral space. No warning, no reason, just a test. The outpost was unarmed. No one survived. The galaxy waited for Earth to speak, but Earth said nothing. There were no meetings, no messages, no fleets, just silence. Many thought Earth had accepted the loss. Some said they were afraid. The Zarnok Dominion laughed in their war rooms. See, they are nothing. They only talk. They sent more ships near Earth's space, flying close but not attacking. They wanted a reaction, and they got none. But something else was happening far below the icy surface of Antarctica. Deep under layers of rock and frozen lakes, machines woke up. These machines were old, older than most new, built not for war, but for defense, for peace with protection. For moments just like this one in a quiet room below the ice, a small group of humans sat around a circular table. There were no reporters, no cameras, just leaders, scientists, and a woman named Director Lane, who spoke calmly. The outpost is gone. No warning, no apology, no justice. A scientist beside her spoke. Project Redline is still active. We never shut it down. I just hoped we'd never use it. Director Lane looked around the table. Hope is good, but hope without action is just waiting for the next mistake. An old man, gray-haired and tired, raised his voice. Do we respond like them? Do we break what they broke? Lane shook her head. No, we don't act like them. We act like us. Quiet, fast, precise, no show, just truth. They all agreed. In orbit, Earth's regular ships moved like normal. The planet showed no signs of defense, but underground, hidden shipyards began to glow. Engineers who hadn't worked in years were called back. Files that were locked for decades opened again. 5 ships were prepared. Each had no name, only a number. They had no bright flags or loud engines. They didn't need them. They were built with silent engines and minds that could think faster than any computer. These ships had waited for a long time. Meanwhile, in the Zarnok Dominion, commanders grew bored. Earth does nothing, they said. They are weak. But General Threx still watched. He watched the stars near Earth and noticed small changes. Energy patterns, ship movement, disappearances. They are not doing nothing. He whispered to his assistant. They are planning. The assistant laughed. With 5 ships against us. Threx didn't smile. You don't need 1,000 hammers to break a wall, just the right one in the right place. A week passed. Then, without warning, the Zarnok base on the moon, Zather, went dark. It wasn't destroyed with fire or explosions. It just stopped. No communication, no signals, no response. When a scout ship arrived to check, it found no damage, but every system inside was turned off, as if something had touched the heart of the base and told it to sleep. Across the galaxy, a simple message played once, just audio, no video. It said, we offered peace. We asked only for respect. We warned no one. And still, someone crossed the line. We are still peaceful, but we are not empty. The message came from Earth. Suddenly, all those who laughed became quiet. In the days that followed, strange things started happening. Small Zarnok ships began disappearing near Earth's border. Satellites went blind. Messages got scrambled. But Earth never spoke again. And far below Antarctica, Project Redline remained open. The galaxy now asked, what else was Earth hiding? And why had they stayed silent for so long? The message from Earth still echoed in the minds of many across the stars. It was short, quiet, and spoken in calm tones. Yet somehow, It made the galaxy feel colder. Those who once called humans weak had nothing to say now. For the first time, they wondered if they had misunderstood Earth completely. In the Zarnok dominions, command chambers, confusion began to grow. The base on Moon Zeta was still unreachable. No signs of damage, no signs of life either. It was as if time had stopped inside the walls of that station. Engineers and analysts worked day and night, but none could explain what had happened. The systems didn't shut down, they had simply chosen not to respond anymore. General watched the reports quietly. He was older than most in the room, and perhaps wiser. His words were not loud, but they carried weight. "We tested something we didn't understand," he said, eyes focused on the fading signal logs. "Now we wait for the next answer." But others didn't listen. They believed Earth would do no more, that the silence after the message was Earth's final word. A warning, yes, but only that. What no one saw was what Earth was doing behind the curtain. Beneath the deserts of Mars, inside caves carved by machines older than any living generation, a second protocol was opened. Its name had not been spoken in years, even by Earth's own leaders. It was only known by a code. Phoenix. Phoenix Protocol was not about revenge, it was about awareness. It was designed for a moment when Earth was reminded that peace was not always returned, that even when you give your best, some will take advantage of your silence. It was never meant to start anything, only to ensure that nothing worse followed. In hidden hangars, sleek crafts began moving. Some flew without engines, some didn't even leave a shadow. They were made for movement that couldn't be traced, made for missions that didn't need names. At the same time, across Earth, signals were sent to colonies, not public ones, but the quiet stations in far systems, outposts with small crews and strange tasks. Some monitored time, others watched gravitational tides near collapsed stars. These people were not soldiers. They were thinkers, builders, and watchers. But even they knew what the signal meant. Return. One by one, these people began to make their way back to Earth. Some arrived through wormhole gates, others through silent travel that had no light trails. They didn't speak much when they landed. They only asked, "How much has changed?" Director Lane stood at the center of it all. She didn't show emotion. She only looked at the stars through a glass wall and whispered, "They thought we forgot how to move." Meanwhile, smaller species in the galaxy began to whisper. A few remembered old records of times when Earth was not silent, times when humans had been more active, times when they had saved whole planets from collapse, and then disappeared before thanks could be given. Most had forgotten those stories. Now they began to listen again. One species, the Vir, had once been helped by a human science team during a planetary storm. They had always respected Earth, but even they were surprised by recent events. "They are quiet for a reason," said the Viran elder to her students. "You do not hide light unless it can blind." Back in Zarnok space, another event occurred. One of their supply ships vanished. No sign of distress, no trace on scanners. The path it followed went near a neutral asteroid belt where Earth had once placed sensors. When the Zarnok sent a second ship to investigate, it returned, but the data inside was scrambled. The video feed only showed one clear image, a dark figure standing inside the stars, with no ship around it. The Zarnik engineers believed it was a trick, but General Threx didn't. He watched the image closely, paused it, and zoomed in. The figure was wearing a suit, human design, old but advanced. He said nothing, just sat back in his chair and closed his eyes. "Phoenix," he muttered, like it was a word he had heard before, but hadn't dared to speak. Earth still hadn't spoken, still hadn't sent fleets, still hadn't made demands, but the galaxy had already started to change. Others were watching now. Species who once saw Earth as distant were now alert. Not because Earth had threatened them, it hadn't, but because they were reminded that power doesn't always need a stage. Some of the most careful ones are the ones who know exactly when to act and exactly when to wait. The stars, once calm, now seemed to shift ever so slightly, and across the systems, a question grew stronger. If this was Earth simply responding, what would they do if they truly decided to act? The ship was silent. It had no name painted on its side. No lights blinked on its surface. It moved through space without leaving any trace. It didn't fly in straight lines, like other ships. It flowed almost like it was gliding through space itself. And it wasn't alone. There were 5 of them, all quiet, all hidden. No one in the galaxy saw them leave Earth. No signal warned of their journey. They passed near stars, through dust fields, between ancient wrecks, without a single sound. These ships weren't made to be seen. They were built to disappear. And yet, when they arrived, everyone knew something had changed. Their first stop was a space station near a quiet planet named Verilon 6. It was a Zarnok trade post, known more for minerals than for war. But the humans had a reason to be there. It was where their ambassador had once shared a drink with a Zarnok officer years ago, when peace was real and promises were still strong. That officer had sent the humans a private message just days before the outpost was destroyed. "Something is coming," the message said. "I tried to stop it. Forgive us." That message had never reached Earth in time, but it was saved in backup files, recovered quietly. The name of the officer was Hector. He had disappeared soon after sending it. The 5 ships arrived at Verilon 6 and did nothing for hours. They only floated near the station, waiting. The station's crew grew nervous. Messages were sent, but none were answered. Then, at exactly midnight ship time, every screen on the station turned black, and a simple human message appeared. "Not all memories are forgotten. Not all friends are lost." No harm came to the station. No systems were damaged. But when the humans left, the Zarnok crew found something new in their data logs. A hidden folder, filled with peaceful memories. Videos, photos, and voice recordings from that same human ambassador who used to visit. It was a silent reminder. Earth still remembered kindness, even in the middle of uncertainty. But that was only the beginning. The 5 ships moved again, this time toward a much larger destination, the Zarnok base at North Prime. It was a central hub, filled with military leaders, traders, and engineers. The base had always felt safe. Nothing unusual had ever happened there, until now. The humans didn't land, they didn't attack, they only passed nearby, and during that short time, every mirror, screen, and reflective surface on the base began to show strange images. Not threats, not destruction, but stars, as seen from Earth. Quiet forests, ocean waves, children, laughing, sky cities above clouds. For many who lived on the base, it was their first time seeing Earth. No one could explain how the images got there. The engineers couldn't remove them. It was like Earth was whispering to the Zarnok, through light and memory, "We are still here. We are still watching." Some Zarnok officers were confused. Others began to feel uneasy. A few even started asking questions. Why didn't we know they could do this? Why did we push them so far? Why didn't they respond with anger? Back on Earth, Director Lane watched from her command center. She sat quietly, listening to reports from the 5 ships. None had used weapons. None had caused harm. Yet, their presence alone was changing everything. "They need to see," she said to her team. "Not our power, but our purpose." Elsewhere in the galaxy, something strange was happening. Independent species, those not part of the Zarnok or Earth's circle, were starting to speak out. On public networks, they shared messages in support of Earth. A few even told stories from the past, times when humans had helped without asking for anything in return. A group of scientists on a moon called Tyrelinate released old data, showing how a human team had once repaired their climate systems during a solar storm, but had never claimed credit. "These are not the ones to test," their message said. "They choose peace even when they hold the keys to something greater." The Zarnak Dominion now faced something they had never expected: silence. That made more noise than any fleet. Inside their council, debates grew. Some leaders wanted to meet with Earth immediately. Others believed Earth was only showing off. But General Threx once again stood apart from them. "They are not showing off," he said, staring at a still image from North Prime, a child's drawing of stars from Earth. "They are asking us to think. They are giving us one last chance to understand." Across the stars, the 5 ships vanished again. No one knew where they would go next, but everyone knew one thing: Earth wasn't silent anymore, and what came next would depend not on Earth, but on how the galaxy chose to listen. For the first time in years, the Zarnak Council requested a private message channel to Earth. No cameras, no public announcement, just a quiet signal through the oldest path, used during the first peace agreement between their worlds. The signal was sent with care. It carried no demands, only a simple line: "We may have misunderstood. Can we talk?" But the message was met with silence. No reply, no echo, no delay. Signal. It was as if Earth chose not to answer, or had already moved past words. On Earth, there were long discussions among the leaders. Director Lane stood by a large window, looking out toward the sky. Around her, members of the Earth diplomatic circle waited. They've reached out, one advisor said. They might be ready to listen. Lane nodded slowly. The problem is no longer their ears, she said. It's their memory. They forgot too much, too fast. Elsewhere, the 5 ships that had quietly moved through space continued their silent journey. They no longer floated in the shadows. Now they were arriving openly, not with sound or force, but with something far more unexpected. They came bearing stories. Each ship stopped at a location where the Earth had once helped in the past, a broken world restored, a planet saved from natural collapse, a trade route made fair. These stories had never been told widely. Earth never asked for praise. But now, the humans were letting others remember what had been forgotten. In a small farming planet called Erelist 3, the children woke up to find their town square filled with glowing images, pictures of their ancestors standing beside human engineers, smiling during the rebuilding of a water system long ago. It was quiet. No message played. But everyone who saw the lights felt the same thing. Someone remembered. Them on the edge of Zarnok space. The crew of a neutral cargo station received an anonymous package. Inside were old audio logs, recordings of a time when Earth had helped rescue a stranded crew after a solar current had blocked their ship. Those recordings had been lost. Now they had returned. Species from across the stars began talking again, not with fear, but with surprise. Some had never known these stories. Others had only heard rumors. But now, with proof in their hands, they began to wonder, what else did Earth do in silence? Meanwhile, small changes began happening in the Zarnok Dominion. Young officers started resigning quietly from their posts, not in protest, but in reflection. Some said they needed time to think. Others admitted they had never truly understood Earth. In a Zarnik school, a teacher played the Earth message again. Her students listened closely. We offered peace. We asked only for respect. The teacher paused the recording. Why does this message feel different than all the others we've studied? She asked. A young Zarnok student, barely old enough to read galactic maps, answered softly. Because they didn't say it to win, they said it to remind. Elsewhere in space, a small planet called Kalen was suddenly surrounded by strange signals. The planet had been struggling with atmospheric loss for years. Their government had begged for help, but no major empire had responded. Then, one morning, they found new satellite rings around their sky machines that began to repair their air quietly. There were no flags on the machines, only one name in a small corner, Earth. No news channel covered it. No camera crews arrived. Earth never sent a message to claim credit, but the people of Kalen knew. On Earth, the discussions continued. Director Lane met with former explorers, diplomats, and even quiet figures who lived in shadows, the ones who handled Earth's deeper missions. They were not planning a battle. They were planning a memory. We must help them remember who we are, Lane said, because if they truly remember, they'll see we never left the path of peace. Meanwhile, General Threx found himself walking alone in the Zarnok Garden of Silence, a place usually visited only by those seeking truth. He sat near the water, watching light bounce across the surface. In his hand was an old data chip, one he'd kept from a mission years ago, where humans had saved his crew from an unknown infection. He had never told anyone about it, but now, he wondered why. They didn't ask for anything, he whispered. They never do. Back on Earth, the 5 ships finally returned. Their journey was complete. They had not delivered warnings. They had delivered truth. Truth through action, not noise. And now, the galaxy was speaking again, this time not in fear, but in memory. The humans never asked for control. They only asked to be seen clearly. And those who once laughed, now sat quietly, wondering what they had truly missed, and if it was too late to go back. The stars were quiet, but not still. Earth's ships had returned. Their journey across the galaxy had stirred minds and awakened memories. Many species had started to view humanity differently, not as a mystery, but as something older, deeper, and quietly wise. But peace is not only tested from the outside. Sometimes the real test comes from within. Inside Earth's Central Council, there was someone who didn't agree with the quiet path. His name was Commander Ryan Voss. He had served Earth in deep space for more than 30 years. He believed in Earth's mission once. He believed that silence was strength, but over time, he began to question. "We have always waited," he said. "During a private meeting, we give and we forgive. But what has the galaxy given us in return?" His words weren't shouted. They were careful, controlled, and yet, they held something dangerous out. He wasn't angry. He was tired. In secret, Voss began sending messages to a few others who thought the same way. Not many, just enough to form a circle of influence. They called themselves the Quiet Hand, not because they wanted war, but because they believed Earth should stop hiding its true position. They believed Earth should not just protect, but lead. Without telling the full council, Voss approved a mission, a small one, only 3 ships. Their target was not Zarnok, and not hostile. It was a neutral station, one Earth had helped build years ago. The goal was to send a message, Voss said, to show we're ready to act if needed. But that message never reached its destination. When the 3 ships arrived, they didn't make contact. They activated a field that disabled the station's communication temporarily. No one was harmed, but the silence frightened the station's crew. It was the first time Earth's name caused fear, not comfort. News spread quickly. Other species had just started to trust Earth again. They had shared stories, opened communication, even invited humans to help with environmental and energy projects. Now, that trust began to shake. "This wasn't the Earth we were starting to believe in," said one ambassador in a public message. Back on Earth, Director Lane received a quiet report from one of her intelligence branches. She read it once, twice, then sat alone for a long moment, her hands folded, her eyes still. She didn't speak to the council immediately. Instead, she visited the Earth archives, a deep vault where old decisions were kept. Audio logs, personal journals, private reports from long-gone missions. She listened to voices of past leaders, some hopeful, some afraid, some full of pain. One log stayed with her. It was a recording from a diplomat who had served during the First Contact era. "If we ever begin to act like those who forgot peace," the voice said, "we must stop ourselves before someone else does it for us." Lane returned to the council the next day. She didn't raise her voice. She simply played the audio of Voss's secret mission in front of everyone. There was silence in the room. Voss stood, calm and confident. "I did what I believed was necessary." Lane looked at him, not with anger but with disappointment. "We don't lead through silence if the silence hides something untrue," she said. "We lead by reminding others what truth looks like, what respect feels like, even when no one is watching." Some in the council agreed with Voss, not loudly, but in thought. They were afraid of being forgotten again, afraid that silence made Earth look weak. That peace made them easy to ignore. But others remembered what had just happened, how the galaxy had slowly begun to trust again, not because Earth showed power, but because Earth showed care, and care, they knew, could not be forced. Director Lane ordered an investigation not to punish Voss, but to understand how deep the division ran. Earth would not silence itself again, but it also wouldn't let quietness be used as a shield for control. Elsewhere, in distant corners of the galaxy, whispers began to rise again. Confusion returned. Were the humans changing their path? Were they becoming something new? A young Viren student, who had watched Earth's lights appear in the sky only weeks before, wrote in her journal, "I thought Earth was made of calm rivers. Now, I wonder if there's something stronger underneath, moving the water when no one looks." The galaxy had seen Earth's silence, then its memory, then its stories. Now it was starting to see its conflict. And just like before, Earth said, "Nothing. Not yet," because sometimes the hardest thing is not to speak. Sometimes the hardest thing is to stay true to who you were before the world changed around you. Beneath the oceans of Earth, deeper than most satellites could reach, there was a chamber that hadn't been opened in almost 200 years. No one remembered who built it. It was marked only with a single word, Echo. Inside that chamber, silence lived, not the silence of peace, but of memory, heavy memory, the kind that waits for the right moment to be heard again. And that moment had arrived. Director Lane stood before a circular platform surrounded by golden panels. A security key, passed down only to Earth's highest protector, was placed into the center. The room responded with a gentle vibration. Lights turned on slowly, as if waking from sleep. A soft voice echoed through the chamber. Calm, without emotion. "Welcome, Echo Keeper. You are the first in 198 years. Lane didn't speak. She only listened. The voice continued. "Please confirm, has the galaxy forgotten why Earth became silent?" Lane closed her eyes. Yes, the chamber opened. Inside was not a weapon, not a ship, not a machine. It was a library, but not one made of books or screens. It was made of moments, holograms, audio, personal journals, messages from those who had come before. People who had seen what happened, who had felt the consequences of Earth's past decisions. Director Lane stepped into the center of the archive. The first story began. It was the story of Earth. Before the silence, a time when humanity was not quiet, not cautious, a time when they reached into the stars with full strength and ambition, when Earth's name made other worlds listen, not because of trust, but because of fear. Back then, Earth believed it could guide others, teach them, lead them into a new era, but something went wrong. Not because humans wanted power, but because they underestimated how much they could change others and themselves. Planets began to reshape under human systems. Cultures began to fade. The idea of peace became something Earth designed for others, not something shared. And then came the collapse. It wasn't war. It wasn't rebellion. It was exhaustion. The galaxy grew tired of Earth's direction, and Earth, in turn, grew tired of defending its choices. So, in a meeting never recorded in public history, Earth stepped back, not in defeat, but in understanding. They left the councils. They closed the gates to their advanced systems. They offered help only when asked, and most of all, they erased parts of their own influence, so others could grow without them. This was called the quiet departure, a choice to become small again, so others could stand tall. Lane sat down in the middle of the chamber, surrounded by the voices of those who made that decision. One of them, a woman named Soline Erin, an explorer from that era, spoke through an old recording. "One day, someone will cross the line again, and we will be asked why we didn't rise louder, sooner. When that happens, show them this. Show them we chose silence, not from fear, but from care, and if we must speak again, let it be with clarity, not control." Lane left the chamber after hours. Her face showed no tears, only purpose. Back on Earth's surface, she gathered the current council. She played the story of the quiet departure for them. No one spoke for a long time. Even Commander Voss, who once believed Earth should lead again, stayed silent. "They were not perfect," Lane said, gently, "but they chose peace at the cost of their pride. They believed others deserved to rise. Now, some believe that silence made us weaker. I say it made us wiser." Some heads nodded. Others looked down, thinking. In the galaxy beyond, the mood was shifting again. A few Zarnak leaders began searching through old records. They found mentions of Earth's early presence in forgotten colonies, not as rulers, but as quiet guides. Pieces of old technology still worked, still running after centuries without repair. A Zarnak historian wrote a message on a public network. "Maybe Earth never disappeared. Maybe they just made room for us to grow." Across the stars, curiosity returned. Not fear, not applause. Something more important, understanding. The same Viren student who once wrote about Earth's rivers, wrote again in her journal, "Earth is not a storm. It is a memory that waits until we're ready to remember." The story of Echo had been kept hidden for a reason, not because it was shameful, but because it wasn't finished. And now, with each part revealed, the galaxy had a choice: to return to the noise, or to listen more carefully than ever before.